So I've been reading the Bible lately, and it's actually quite fascinating. I read it long ago when I was like 20, and I didn't read it for the right reasons. I didn't really absorb much, obviously, because now I'm reading it, and there's so much more to it than I thought and remember. But it's been almost 20 years, so I lost a lot of it. But reading Exodus has been fascinating with Moses and the Israelites. You know, and I found that Moses is funny. Like, why have I never heard this? Moses is funny. You know, God comes to him and he's like, whoa. And God's like, you know what? I've chosen you, Moses. You're going to lead my people out of Egypt. And he's like, I don't know about that. And God's like, well, I do. And you're going to do it. And he's like, oh, you know, isn't there somebody else better than me? You know? And God's like, no, I chose you. And he's like, I don't understand why. You know, I can't talk. I can't speak. I'm not a good speaker. And God's like, well, you're going to take your brother Aaron. Your brother Aaron is going to speak. You talk to me. Then you talk to Aaron. And then Aaron tells everybody. And he's like, oh, man, why do I got to be in the middle of this, you know? And God's like getting frustrated with him. And he's like, listen, this is what you're going to do, right? He lists out a bunch of stuff that Moses is going to do this. And then Moses is listening and he goes, you know, God, you should probably find somebody else. God gets pissed off. He's like, no, you're doing it. I chose you for a reason. You're doing it. So he's like, okay. You know, so he's, you know, does all the stuff that God told him to do, you know, show the Pharaoh, you know, he throws the staff down, turns into a snake. He does these miracles for the Pharaoh and is like, let my people go or bad things are going to happen. And Pharaoh's like, yeah, right, okay. So then God, you know, sends the plagues on him. Each time he sends a plague, you know, Moses goes back to the Pharaoh and is like, hey, man, we're going to mess you up. God's going to mess you up if you don't let the Israelites go. And, you know, something bad had just happened, and Pharaoh's like, oh my gosh, yes, just get out of here. This is a nightmare, right? And then God's like, beep, zaps him, and then he's like, wait, no. Because God's like, I'm going to harden his heart and, you know, make him refuse. You know, so the whole time, Pharaoh's just like, oh my gosh, I want this to end. You know, I'm good, just go, get away. And then God's like, zap, and then he's like, no, you're staying, you know. And then he's probably wondering why he's even saying that, right? But then he's like, no, bring it on. You know, so all these terrible things happen before Pharaoh finally says, okay, go. And God doesn't harden his heart. So then, you know, he's just being tortured, right? These people. And so the Israelites leave, and he's like, thank you for leaving. I don't know, thank God. I don't know, thank the gods. I don't know what he's done. And then God's like, beep, and he's like, no, let's go get him. You know, so chase him down, parts the sea, they go through, and then he drowns everybody, all the Pharaoh's charioteers and the Pharaoh himself and all that. So Moses is leading this group of, you know, like 1 million plus Israelites. There's a ton of them. There were 600,000 fighting-aged men, so there's got to be well over 1 million. You know, and he's leading them. And, you know, they piss God off a lot because he's like, you know, they're always wailing and crying and sobbing and weeping and all this stuff because, oh, there's no water here. We're better off in Egypt. And then God's like, you guys suck. I got you out of Egypt. You're slaves. And they're like, but we're happier there. This sucks. You know, a bunch of entitled brats. And Moses has to deal with them, right? They're all wailing at him all the time and harassing him. So he goes to God and he's like, why? Why me? I tried to tell you I didn't want to do this. And God's like, I don't care. I told you you need to do it. But I don't want to. These people suck. He even is like, did I give birth to all these people, Lord? Why do I need to carry them around and pamper them and take care of them? Did I raise them? Did I give birth to them, right? These people are annoying. And God's like, yes, they're very stiff-necked. Whatever that means. I'm not sure what that means. I still can't figure that one out. But Moses is just like, these people suck. And he's like, well, go down and hit the rock with your staff and water will come out. So he goes down, he hits the rock, water comes out. So they all drink from this font out of the rock. So there's another time where like they don't have any food and they're wailing again, and Moses is, they're all like, hey, we're kind of feeling we're gonna stone you to death, Moses. And he's like, what? Why? And they're like, because you brought us out here. Can you imagine being stoned to death? Like people just throw rocks at you until you're dead. I could not imagine many deaths being worse than that. So they're like, yeah, we're kind of voting on stoning you to death. And so he's like, no, what the heck? Why? I've done all this work. I parted the sea, or God did through me, whatever. I don't want to not give him credit. And, but I did all this and I'm leading you out of slavery and all that. And they're like, but we are better off because we had food and water and all this and wine, and we don't even have food now. We're going to starve to death and die in the wilderness because of you. And they've seen these miracles, right? So they're not like, just being told the stories. They've seen this and they're acting like that. So Moses goes to God and God's like, these stiff-necked people, these annoying people, I'm just going to slaughter them in the wilderness. And Moses is like, no, come on, dude. I have done so much work. I have done all this work dealing with these annoying people and trying to get them where you want me to take them. And you told me I had to do it. Don't you dare slaughter them in the wilderness. Make this all for nothing. And God's like, okay, I won't. I won't slaughter them in the wilderness like I was planning, but I'll give them bread or manna. And manna was some kind of thing that, it's like in the morning with the foggy dew, it like created, and it was a hard thing they could crush up and turn into bread. So they ate that for a long time. And then they were bitching and complaining about that. They're, all we get is this manna. We had real bread and other kinds of stuff in Egypt. So God's just like, gonna kill them. And Moses is like, please don't. Just tell me where next to go. So they keep pissing God off. So God's like, well, I was going to take you straight into Israel, but or Jericho, whatever it was at that point. But now you're going to go way down here, and then over here, and then back over here, and then down here, and then over here, and over here. And he just like throws them all over the place for 40 years. And Moses is like an old man now, and he's just like grumpy and hates these people. But, before that, God says, hey, Moses, you got to come up here and talk to me on this mountain for 40 days. So he's like, oh, geez, what are these people going to do for 40 days, And he's like, well, they should survive without you. Aaron's there, your brother. He can take care of them. So he goes up the mountain, and he's up there for a while. And the people down below are like, where'd Moses go? He's been gone for like 40 days. And Aaron's like, well, I don't know. He should be coming back, And they're like, screw this. We're going to worship idols now. Like, all the crap they've been through, all the miracles they've seen, everything that's crazy proof of God, they're like, no, we want you to make a cow out of gold, and we're going to start bowing down to it. And we're going to worship that. And Aaron's like, might not be a good idea. And they're like, we'll just stone you to death. So he's like, okay. And he makes this gold calf. Right? So they're all down there, surrounding it, worshiping it for God knows what reason. Like, what? Why? But anyway, Moses is up top and he's getting the 10 Commandments inscribed, right? He's up there waiting for God to get done printing it. And it's on stone tablets. And it's like the Ten Commandments and a bunch of other rules that he has for the Israelites. Well, Moses is carrying these tablets. And he's, huffing, puffing, and, dragging his butt down that hillside after not eating or drinking for 40 days. And he's just like, probably worn out, grumpy, finally got this done. Now he can go eat something and drink something. And he comes down the hillside. And he's coming down the hillside. He sees this gold calf and everyone bowing down to it. And he's like, ah! And he throws down the tablets and breaks them. And then he's like, ah! Look! I hate you people! Look what you made me do! Ah! And he comes down and he kicks over the calf and he starts beating it and breaks it and smashes it all up. And they're like, well, what were we supposed to do? He's like, why? Why would you be down here worshipping a gold cow? Well, what else were we supposed to do? It's just common sense that we do that because you were gone so long. Oh my gosh. So he's just like at his wit's end, He's probably bald at this point because he's ripped out all his hair. He's like 100 and some years old. And he's just like, God, can you just kill me? Can you just end it? Please. Please just end it. Just, slaughter me in the wilderness, please. And God's like, I kind of want to slaughter everyone in the wilderness, but not you. But your brother too, because he did that whole thing with the gold calf. It really pissed me off. And Moses is like, what the hell, Aaron? Why would you do this? And he's like, dude, they were going to stone me. What was I supposed to do? Like 1 million people throwing rocks at me? I gave in, okay? I made him the idol. So he's all mad at everybody. And God's like, well, Moses, come on back up. And he's like, I hate you people so much. And God's like, yeah, you got to come back up here so we can remake the stone tablets that you broke. And he's like, but dude, you saw what they were doing. They made me do it. They made me so upset that I broke them. It's their fault, not mine. He's like, do you want me to slaughter him? And he's like, no. Fine. Dude, I don't want this all to be for nothing, so please don't slaughter them in the wilderness. I will come back up. So he goes back up another 40 days. He's up there waiting for God's printer to get done with the Ten Commandments. Comes back down and, this time everything's, okay. And he starts giving them stuff to do because he's like, you guys got to do something. Like, if I leave you to your own devices, you're like, worshiping a bunch of idols for no good reason. Like, there's no proof in them at all, but you're seeing proof of God all the time, and you start bowing down to some, statue that's in front of you. So we got to keep you busy. So he gets them all rolling on the Ark of the Covenant and the tent and all the banners and flag, all that stuff. So Moses, leads them, and that might have been a little bit later, but so he's leading them again, and they start wailing on him and weeping and doing all that biblical drama. And so he's like, God, I'm so done. I'm so done with these people. I'm just so beyond done. I'm like 120 years old now. I'm just so done. And God's like, well, go down and whap the rock with your stick. Water will come out. So he goes down and he's mad and he's like, look, how many times do I have to prove myself to you? Huh? How much have I done for you and you still doubt me? And he whaps the rock with his stick and nothing happens. And he's like, and they're like picking up their stones. And he's like, hold on. Let me try that again. All right. So he whaps the rock with his stick and water comes out of it. So like, man, God saved my butt there. But then God's mad at him. He's like, you said you did it. No bueno. Because I did it. If you give yourself credit, they're going to start worshiping you. They need to worship me. So, I'll leave you behind now. You don't get to go. Actually, what he had done before already was the Israelites pissed him off so bad that anybody like 20 years and older needed to die before they got to the promised land, before they got to Israel. So that's why they wandered around so much, was because they made him so mad. He needed to make sure that everybody over like 20 years old died before they could get to Israel. And Aaron, at one point, he's like, yeah, you know what? Aaron's done. Your brother's done. Give his, priest mantle to somebody else, because I'm going to kill him. And I'm done with Aaron, right? So he's just like, oh, okay. So they give his stuff to his sons, and then he goes and, God kills him, I guess. I don't know, he dies. Gets gathered to his people, is how God put it. But then Moses, pissed him off because he took credit for the miracles. And God was like, yeah, not cool, Moses. Now you're not going to make it to the promised land. So he went through all this crap, did all this crap, and then he made the mistake of, not, fully giving God credit for everything. And, so God took him up on a mountain and was like, he's like, well, tell Joshua that he's going to take over. And so he's like, okay, Joshua, you're taking over. And Joshua's like, oh, man, how am I going to do it? Oh, I'm going to miss you. You're my mentor, my idol, my best friend and all that. And Moses is like, it's okay. They're your people now. Have fun with that. So he goes up the mountain, chills with God, and then God kills him and buries him. But, he really was an interesting character. Imagine having God show up in front of you and you're like, whoa! And he's like, I have a mission for you. I've chosen you. And you're like, I don't know. I don't really want to. Think of the gall that Moses had. He was like, and he was kind of a savage. They wiped out entire cities of people. There was even one time where they were told they needed to wipe out everything in this city, right? And you think about that, that's, children, women, animals, everything. Just wipe everything out is what God ordered. So they come back with like 30,000 women and girls. And then I think around the same, I think it was like 60-some thousand prisoners. And Moses is like, I told you God said to kill them all. And they're like, well, but why should we? We can keep them. We can marry the women off. We can, keep them as slaves and stuff like that. And he's like, God said to kill them all. Now do it. And they killed all of them. 60-some thousand people, women, children, everything. Like, that's savage. I don't love that very much, and I don't know what God's process was, were these, evil people, were these, it's kind of like, I think of like now, young kids who are indoctrinated with Islam, and, you can kill their parents who are shooting at you, but then they go on to become that adult who then kills a bunch of people and does all this stuff, right? So is it better just to wipe them all out for them and everybody else? I don't know. There's a wisdom there maybe that a lot of us don't understand or don't have, but God does. But then Joshua, when he took over and he went across the river with all the Israelites, they killed millions. It said in the Bible that each city was bigger, had more people, and was more powerful than the Israelites. But that was okay because God is going to have your back. You're going to take them. If I tell you you're going to take them, you're going to take them. So there being over 1 million Israelites, that means that each city of the like 32 or so cities that they destroyed were upwards of 1 million people. And at least like 600,000 fighting men or more, and they wiped them out. They had to have been responsible for millions of deaths, the Israelites. And that's not something you really hear about or know about, but Joshua was a bad SOB, man. He was a warrior. He wasn't just like Moses wasn't much of a warrior, But Joshua was a warrior, and he was incredibly efficient and effective under God. And he listened and he did everything he was supposed to do, and took millions of lives. It's interesting to think about that as an adult. I just can understand and appreciate that stuff a little more. But just it's pretty wild. Pretty wild.